So I need to charge the battery on my motorbike. And the reason I need to take the battery out of my bike is that I'm currently on an anticoagulant drug which has no antidote, and if I bang my head and I start having internal bleeding, then the doctor said, oh, I'll probably die, which means that I have to not ride my motorbike because there's an increased chance of hitting my head and getting internal bleeding. And I can't charge, even though I have a battery tender cable on my bike. The ironic thing is this morning I actually banged my head like on the bed, leaning back too quickly and banging my head on the headboard. I hope I'm okay. But the reason why I can't use the battery tender to charge my battery while it's in my bike, because there's nowhere to plug it in the parking garage in my apartment complex. So I have to take the battery out to keep it charged, keep it trickle charged, and then every so often I'll put it back in and I'll have a friend take it for a ride just to splash oil around on the inside of the engine and to lubricate all the working parts and everything. But if I just leave it, the battery will go dead, which has happened once before, just where I didn't ride it for a while, and the battery, I had to jump start the bike from my car, and it's not good for the battery to become that discharged and need to be jump started. So I'm going to show you how to remove your battery from your motorbike and how to charge it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to remove the battery from a motorbike. This bike is a Moto Guzzi V7 2014, and I'm going to use the tools I'm going to use for this one, and the tools are going to be different for every bike obviously, but I'm going to use a 4mm hex wrench. I really like this kind of hex wrench, and a 3mm hex wrench, and a screwdriver, diamond point or a crosshead or whatever screwdriver. And okay, so the other thing I'm going to use is a pair of gloves to protect my hands, and I'm going to have a cloth here in case there's acid or whatever. You should really wear goggles to protect your eyes from getting acid in them when you're handling batteries. I don't have my goggles with me right now, I'm taking that risk. So the first thing with this bike is this piece comes off the side of the bike, and the way you do that is you put in this 4mm hex wrench and just take out this screw. Or this bolt. Once that's loose, you can just pull it, and there are these little rubberized pin things that stick into these grommets. Actually, this grommet's missing. Okay, that's why that was loose at the bottom. So I have a missing grommet. Oh, here it is. It's fallen through. Okay, so that needs to go back in. Let me just put that back in. I thought it was a bit loose when I was pulling it. So that will make sure that that pin sticks firmly through that hole. Okay, make sure you've got the screw that screwed this piece on. Next thing, I'm going to put my gloves on. Should have already put them on. My hands are already getting kind of gunk on them. So we want to disconnect the battery and remove the battery. So this bike has this clamp here. It's obviously important to make sure you don't connect the live and the two ends of the battery, basically, because the current will heat whatever you connect them with up, and it will explode, and it's pretty bad. So you have to keep metal things away. This is one of the reasons why this end of the battery is protected with a rubber boot. So first of all, I'm just going to unscrew this screw in here. Actually, this piece of metal is kind of dangerous, right? Because you could actually connect two ends of the battery with it. So a pair of pliers might be good to get this one out. Take this screw out. Take this bracket out that's holding the battery in. Oh, there's another screw at the other side of it. Okay. Let's pull that one out. Okay. So there's the other screw, or the other bolt, nuts and bolts. And then this one lifts off, lifting it out and away from the live terminal. And this wire's trapped around it. Okay, so there's the bracket that holds the battery in place, stops it moving around. This bike has a battery tender, which is a cable for charging the battery without taking it out. And so one of each end of the battery tender is connected to each of the terminals on the battery. Okay, so the battery is now kind of loose. I can wobble it, but to get it out on this bike, there's this, I guess it's brake fluid header tube or whatever, where you can see how much brake fluid there is. And I can see that my brake fluid is between min and max, so that's good. But I need to actually remove this to be able to get access to the battery. So this is where I use the 3mm hex wrench. And this bike uses metric tools because it comes from Italy. So just pulling this one out. There's the bolt from that one. And then so now that's not in the way of the battery. Now I can slide the battery out a little bit. I can pull the top of the battery out so I can get access to the places where these cables are connected to the battery. So on this particular battery, you unscrew them. You can also, these are actually also have a nut head on them, so you could use a spanner or what's called a wrench in the US, I guess, to undo these. But these also have a crosshead or a Phillips top to them. So now with battery, with car batteries, with lead acid batteries, you should always disconnect the neutral side first, and always connect the neutral side last, because this end of the battery is connected to all of the metal parts on the bike as a kind of a ground, and so once you've disconnected it, then there's less of a chance of then touching the live side of the battery or somewhere on the bike and causing an explosion or a fire. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is disconnect this end of the battery so the bike's not connected to it anymore. Take out that screw and put that down and pull this one off, and then you've got the ground wire going out this way, and then the ground wire from the battery tender going out that way too. And I'm just noting that this battery tender has a little box on the live or the red side of it, so when I connect it again, I need to connect the box to the one that goes to the positive or the red side. Okay, now I have multiple degrees in electrical engineering, and yet I don't know what to call the terminals of a battery. So I guess they're the positive and the negative. We could talk about electrons, we could talk about flow of electrons, we could talk about flow of holes. Okay, so now I'm going to undo this at this side. Okay. Pull this one out. It's kind of amazing actually how you can be a professional engineer like me and doing mechanical things. The stuff that technicians do, the skilled stuff that technicians do is kind of amazing, and you can spend your entire life not doing much of it or not doing any of it, and then when you start doing it you realize how much craft there is to actually physically doing things with your hands like this. Okay, so we have there's the red end of the battery tender with the block on it, but also there's red, so you know it connects to that, and then you reconnect it. And now both sides of the battery are disconnected and the battery is free, so I can pull it out, so I can lean it out and then lift it, keep it upright. I don't really know how much these batteries can leak, but they have, I guess, what kind of acid is it? It's not, is it hydrochloric acid or is it sulfuric acid, right? They have sulfuric acid in them, they have lead in them, so keep it upright. That's it, it's taken out. And so now I'm going to put this on a battery tender in my apartment And while it's doing that, I'm just going to reassemble some of this stuff and just put it away. So I'm just going to video myself doing that. So let's put this one back. Yeah, I started building, like designing circuit boards and getting them manufactured and soldering them, and I realized how much of an art it is to solder, for example, to actually do good quality soldering. And this one. And I really love, I mean, I'm trying to rush a little bit for this video, but I love doing stuff like this because it takes time and you have to slow down. So I'm going to charge this battery on the balcony of my apartment so that any off-gassing of sulfur, is it sulfur dioxide? I think it's sulfur. There's a really poisonous explosive gas that can come off if the battery is damaged when it's charging, and so it's important to charge them in a well-ventilated area. And when I come back to put this battery back in, I'll go through the reverse steps, connecting the negative end of the battery last. Don't know if you can see, I'm just going to put these little screws in here now to carry it. So when I connect it to my charger inside, or outside actually, then I can use those screws. Okay, now I'm going to put these in neatly. There's this one, there's this one, and then this one, this one. Those are going to go together when I put it back together again. But for now, I push these two little plugs, two grommets here and here. These two plugs, these two plastic plugs. Then pop in this end. Make sure there are no wires in the way. Same goes there. And where's the screw? Both of these grommets are full now. Okay. I'm going to plug these both in. .4 millimeter hex wrench. You see, I just turn that back a little bit until it gets to the top of the thread so that it doesn't thread in with And then I'm just, when I tighten stuff up like this, where it's not like, it doesn't have to be mechanically strong, it just has to stay in place, you know. I'll just tighten it until it's kind of a little bit just tight with my fingers like that. I guess it's called finger tight. Not forcing anything. Okay, that's it. That's how you take the battery out. And maybe I'll make a video about putting the battery back in, I don't know, or charging the battery, but you should have gathered enough from this little process to be able to do that. So you can do this yourself on your own bike. Okay, so the gas that you have to be worried about is actually hydrogen sulfide, which is, I said outside it was something else, sulfur dioxide or something, but that's wrong. The gas that is poisonous and explosive is hydrogen sulfide, and if the battery is damaged, then when it's charging it can produce hydrogen sulfide. which is one of the reasons why you want to charge your batteries outside, so that there's ventilation, and if there is hydrogen sulfide coming out of the battery, then it will be dispersed. And the other thing is you want to make sure that it actually says in the instructions for these chargers that you want to put the actual charging unit as far away from the battery as possible. And I think that's partly so that any accumulation of hydrogen sulfide is going to be less intense by the time it reaches where there might be sparks from the charger. Although usually stuff like that doesn't spark if nothing's moving or whatever. So, as with always, you connect the negative terminal of the battery last. Also start off with the charger disconnected from the supply, so that it's not connected, there's no sparks, there's nothing happening here. Just take the red end, red connector, and I'm going to screw this onto the terminal like this. So this is the brand of the battery charger that I'm using is meant for motorcycle batteries. It's a low capacity charger for small batteries. It's a battery tender junior, and it produces 750 milliamps at 12 volts. And this actually says it should be charged at, this is a 12 volt, 12 amp hour battery, and the charging directions on it are 1.4 amps for 5 to 10 hours, or quick charge at 6 amps. So, I mean, you could charge it with a beefier and more powerful charger, but it seems to work okay with this charger. It just takes longer, and then you can just leave it. This charger will leave it trickle charging and keeping it topped up for indefinitely, so it keeps it healthy. So now I'm going to connect the negative side of the charger like that. I guess I could screw these down with a screwdriver. I think it's going to be fine to just tighten them with my fingers. And so now, actually I'm going to tighten them a little bit. The reason I want to do that is because you don't want the connection to be intermittent and spark at all, because that could, if there's some hydrogen sulfide, it could explode potentially. So now it's connected, I'm going to plug it in out here. This is showing red, which means it's charging. I think that means it's charging. What does that mean? This charger has different things. Red light flashing means that the battery charger has AC power available and the process is functioning properly. If it keeps continuing to flash, then the battery voltage is too low, which means there's something wrong with the battery. Red light solid means that it's charging and it's not ready yet. Green light means it's ready and can be used. And green light flashing means it's ready and can be used, and green light steady means it's fully charged, and it's just basically being maintained. So right now we've got it's red, which makes sense, kind of, because I started the bike and didn't really ride it very far. I started it once. And the smell of hydrogen sulfide is the smell of rotten eggs. So if you smell rotten eggs, then switch the charger off and make sure the air is ventilated, and also try not to breathe it in, because just a couple of breaths can kill you. And also the first breath might smell of rotten eggs, but then it can knock out your sense of smell, so then the next breath doesn't smell of anything. The other thing is that hydrogen sulfide is heavier than air, so it will collect down here. So I'm like down low for the video, but I wouldn't normally want to keep my head super low if I thought there might be hydrogen sulfide in the area. All right.